Hey friends, welcome back to the Do Cool Shit podcast. I am not solo today, which is super exciting for everybody, I'm sure. And I have a really awesome guest. I know this is going to be a super fun conversation. So I have a Bonnie Schroeder here, aka Bonshro, if you know her from Instagram. Bonnie, I feel like you've had multiple lives on Instagram, probably that many people have followed you through.
Yes, yeah. I think that's a very safe to say at this point.
Well, I Bonnie, you do so much stuff. I was writing down, I was like, you have a long history of athletics, college athletics, bodybuilding, CrossFit, pretty solid powerlifting career. You are co-owner of Dope. You are a creator in many different ways. You are an organizer of travel and retreats, as we just mentioned. Probably so many other things as well. Who is Bonnie on a on, like, a deeper level?
Oh, we're starting off with a banger
Well,
there. Well,
dive right in, girl.
yeah, I love it. No, thank you so much for such an incredible introduction. I think it's very easy to downplay your own achievements and accomplishments and what you've done in life. And it's always nice kind of hearing from a friend like, hey, you've done this and this and this. And you're like, oh man, yeah, like actually I've done some shit. There's a pretty healthy like stack of evidence in my corner. So yeah, thank you so much for that. Lately, I've just been saying, retired powerlifter turned coach and hippie, and that seems to like check all the boxes recently. So yeah, thank you for such a beautiful intro. I'm very excited to be here with you today, and yeah, talking about living many lives, like, if that doesn't absolutely hit the nail on the head right there. And I think what is the most important thing that I've learned throughout this growth process and journey is that being flexible is the number one, like, most important thing you can do or you can be, because we are dynamic, ever evolving creatures. And I think things can get so uncomfortable feeling when we put ourselves in just one box for maybe a little bit too long. So, one thing that I'm very grateful for is that I've allowed myself to be dynamic, to be fluid, to be flexible, to explore different sides of myself when I wasn't feeling fully satisfied in one area. And I'm so grateful that I've, given myself the opportunity to expand and play and to help others do the same. And I think that's just brought nothing but growth and benefit to my coaching, to the work that I support women through. And it's just all come together so beautifully. And, now we can offer people coaching, not just physical, but mindset, and bring a community of incredible people together to experience life together.
I love that so much, and that was something that when I first met you, I was like, "Oh, what you guys do just aligns so much with what I was working on and where I wanted to go," and that shared sentiment of flexibility, stepping outside of your comfort zone. You said allowing yourself to basically do something different, to grow out of that box or that identity maybe you were in.
Uh,
Has it always been that way for you?
no, 100%. No, absolutely not. As someone that was always in athletics, like from day one, my identity was very, very much tied to being an athlete and the accomplishments that I was making in whatever athletic realm I was in at the time. And for a very, very, very long time, that was tied, directly to what I was lifting, what I was doing in the gym, this identity or idea of myself that I created that I wanted others to see was very strong and capable and high achieving and winning these things and all that stuff that was very motivating to me at the time. And I think there are a lot of benefits and a lot of beautiful things that come with being a high achieving person. However, I think if you have a big engine, then you absolutely need to ensure that you have big brakes. And I did not have big brakes at the time. And that, of course, eventually at some point will lead to burnout and, questioning if you're doing the right thing and questioning your reasons why you're doing the thing, right? So for me, the athlete identity was just something that I never questioned. It was just something I did. I never really took a step back to look at it like, okay, are you in alignment? Like, is this fulfilling all your needs? And of course, like many athletes, injury will probably happen at some level at some point. And I suffered a pretty traumatic back injury in early 2019, maybe late 2018, and couldn't squat or deadlift for about like 9 months. And that really was very, very hard for me as someone that had her identity solely, like 100% solely attached to this thing. And like, I couldn't see an end. I was like, oh, I'll power lift forever. Like, there was no other plan beyond that. And this injury just kind of ripped that idea right out of my brain. And I was really forced to figure out who I was outside of an athlete, who I was outside of the gym. Of course, looking back, hindsight being 2020, that was the best thing that ever happened to me, and really forced me to become a smarter athlete, a better coach, a better friend, a better partner. Probably made me a more tolerable person to be around because I wasn't so consumed with spending my time lifting in the gym. So was absolutely a blessing in disguise. And now, anyone that I work with, I let them know like, hey, you better know who you are outside of this one single thing, because I think tying your identity to a single thing is risky no matter what, but especially when it's a physical thing that can be taken from you in an instant. So know who else you are, know what else you enjoy. And if you're unsure of that, like, give yourself permission to play and expand and see what else kind of tickles that interest in you, because it's really important to know.
Yeah. That I was just gonna ask you, like, how do you guide other people to do that? Because it's really uncomfortable and it's really
Mhm.
scary for people to step out of that box, and I love how you use the word play because it just makes it more fun, and I agree, I think that's what people can do is have more fun where they, like, learn if they like things or if they don't like things. Everything is great. Learn more about you.
Yeah, it is. It's fully removing like any lens of judgment or expectation, and allowing yourself to feel silly and allow yourself to have fun and allow yourself to fail. And especially if you're coming from a thing that you were very accomplished at and very good at, like, okay, you're gonna have to remove all assumptions about anything else that you do. Like, allow yourself to be curious. Like, maybe you're this epic rock climber and you just have no idea because you've never gotten an opportunity to explore that side of yourself. So I try to encourage everyone to be excited about like that time of exploration, because it's clearly something you haven't given yourself maybe a lot of in the past. So now is a really like thrilling time to see who else you are. I mean, that's the whole point of life, right? You're on this journey of becoming you the whole time. And the greatest honor you get is to be you. So why not really, really enjoy that project of being yourself?
I love that. I love the way that you said that. So I have 2 2 questions. I wrote them down so I don't forget. First one is you said, "If you have a big engine, have big brakes." What does big brakes look like or mean?
I think it's gonna be a little bit different to every person, but basically what I mean by that is knowing what down regulates you, whether that is, cold plunge, meditation, breath work, sound healing, being out in nature, whatever that is. Make sure you know what that tool is. Make sure you have access to that, and make sure you use it before you need it is probably the
Wow.
best way of putting that, because by the time we feel like, oh, I need space, I need quiet, I need to refill somehow, like usually we're already past that point of like, oh, maybe you should have done that a couple days ago, right? But I think a lot of high achievers are, get stuck in this loop of like, oh, if I come off the gas at all, everything falls apart. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs feel that way. And it's very easy to get stuck in that loop. But when in reality, you coming off the brakes for an afternoon, a day, whatever it is actually going to help everything, right? Because you're taking the time to do that kind of. If we're using all these car references, because you're taking the time to do that maintenance work, right? Like that's you changing the oil, that's you replacing the brake pads, like whatever it is, that is going to make everything run smoother and everything last longer, and you can avoid that burnout. But it's in having those tools in your tool belt, knowing when to use them, and understanding that that's benefiting everything in the long run, not getting caught up in this idea that, like, everything will fall apart if I take the time to go to Thailand or whatever that may be. Like, no, it won't. That's a lie you're telling yourself. And, be stoked that you're a high achiever, because that's gotten you to a lot of good places, and obviously, like, everyone has seen a lot of success with that. Um, but have the big breaks.
I love that. It's building it into the toolkit, and I love
Yeah.
a car analogy, honestly. I think it makes it easy for people to understand because this is something I teach my people too, something I learned the hard way, most people
Like we
do.
all do.
Like we all do, right? Run out of gas, essentially. Building that in because I don't think a lot of people realize that they're living in this heightened state and their nervous system is just upregulated and how much damage that can do if you're not actually bringing in that down regulation. I love that you said.
and and we're super adaptable creatures, right? Like we will adapt to whatever state we're in long enough, and that will just feel normal. And us being adaptable has many benefits, but when it's adapting to these really dysregulated states, cortisol's out of control, hormones are out of whack, gi is a disaster. Like, okay, it's time to take a step back and really look at this, from a holistic perspective, and like, okay, what can we do to repair this machine, because damage has been done.
Yeah. Yeah, it's detrimental in so many ways and it's learning that the the thing that got you really really far is gonna break at some point. So,
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, it doesn't mean you need to change. It doesn't mean that there's
yeah.
anything wrong with being a high achiever and a high performer. It just means we need to balance that shit out at the end of the day.
Yeah, I love it. So, the second thing that I wanted to ask you about, having a a big injury, as you said, where that really took you, almost 70% of the things that you did all the time in powerlifting took them away and took you away from that sport where it wasn't really well, everything's a choice, but, it was kind of a forced choice at that point. Did you
Mhm.
have grief associated with that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I probably had grief for most of that year. I was compensating by spending all my time benching. So there was a little bit of that itch that I could still scratch, and thank God that's my favorite lift. But absolutely. It took me a very long time, and I would say probably that entire year, if not a little bit longer, to really come to terms with things. And there was a lot of other things happening in my life at the time. I was beginning to plan my preventative mastectomy. So that also was kind of in my head as like, I don't really know if I wanna compete anymore after that, and I felt like I had checked a lot of boxes with powerlifting and had coached myself to all these kind of numbers that I had in my head that I wanted, and felt good where I had ended things. But yeah, it took me a long time to get there. It took me a long time to figure out who Bonnie was outside of an athlete. And a lot of that was pouring myself into coaching. It was exploring new things. It was getting to travel more. Um, and just kind of slowly, like, I don't think it was like this like dramatic ripping and tearing from an old life, but it was just kind of slowly stepping away on in a way that felt like it was on my terms, like kind of was, kind of wasn't. um but yeah, I would say probably in 2020, I was feeling better. I did my final meet in early 2021. I had my mastectomy in spring of 2021. And I was like, okay, that's it. And then at that point, I was feeling good enough to be like, okay, I'm done. Like, I'm hanging up the singlet, I guess, if you will, the belt. Maybe that's a cooler thing to say.
Yeah.
I'm hanging that up. Like, and I feel really, really good letting this chapter fully be closed. And I think it's important to know when to walk away from a thing. And, stories can't continue unless chapters close. No one wants to read the same chapter forever. So it felt right. It felt like I was at peace with the decision and with where I was at in my life. And yeah, it was really interesting because I never thought about it coming to an end, which is kind of silly but true. And once it did, I felt very much at peace with it, like I said, and understood that, like, okay, it's time to move on. Everything else in my life is moving forward, so I have to go with it.
Mm. It sounds like you had a that part of that piece, like an understanding that the world is not over, where maybe past you had thought like, well, powerlifting's it. It's it for me. And it's like realization that there's so much more and there's so much more that helps you be you.
Mhm. Mhm. 100%. And like thinking that now seems so silly. It's like it's a fucking hobby. Like, of course, there's more to life than this. Like, it's a fucking hobby. It should be fun. No one gives a shit in the real world how much weight you're lifting. Like, it's very easy to insulate ourselves in these little like powerlifting bubbles and like think that this is important and like think that this matters. It doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, it's so it is does seem so silly on the outside, but you're like, that was my whole world. I was in a bubble. That meant
No.
everything to me.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And I'm not saying like don't take your hobbies seriously and find something you love and are passionate about and pour yourself into it, but also like recognize it for what it is, Like they always say like no one is putting your total on your headstone. Yeah, of course. Of course not. Of course not. There's so much more to life outside of the gym. And that's something I really encourage all my clients. If we're on a training prep and we want to take this really seriously, okay, awesome. I got you. If you are training to be strong and capable for life, I am never going to tell you to like miss a vacation or miss a life event because you should be in the gym. Like there's a lot of life to live and we only get so much time to do it.
yes. I wish I had it pulled up. I feel like you made a recent post about time and just how you wanna spend your time. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
You
Mhm.
how do you wanna spend your time?
I want to spend my time traveling and I want to do it with like minded people. And I want to see as much of the world as I possibly can. And I think the older I get, the more like urgent that feels. And I'm very aware that we're all here with a very finite time frame, and I've seen people who thought they had a lot more time and they didn't. And I think for anyone who's had any kind of like mortality moment like that with themselves or a close loved one, like you feel that urgency kind of deep in your bones and then it doesn't ever really let you go. Like it's there. It's there. And you're really, really hyper aware that we just get this one precious life, as I referenced it. And what you do with it ultimately only matters to you. The way that I want to spend it is with people who have the same values, the same ideas of what life should be. And I want to see as much of the earth as I possibly can. And I've seen 20 countries and that I know people that have been to 150 plus and I'm like, I gotta get going. Like I gotta see everything. So yeah, that's really where my focus is right now. And with that post that you probably saw, if I'm thinking of the right one, it is a constant battle in here of okay, I want the perfect little home life and to have everything organized and aesthetic and like, my Virgo loves that. And then I've got this sag energy that's like, burn it all down and move to Bali. Like, so it is constantly trying to reconcile those two opposing passions in my mind, and it is a challenge. And I feel like I'm very much on the edge of something right now. So who knows what that looks like 6 months from now. Yeah, that's where I'm at. I think about time a lot.
Yeah, I very much resonate with that. I also very much resonate of feeling like I'm in this kind of transition period, like something big and different
Mm,
maybe coming, and it's weird. How are you sitting in that space?
I'm not doing it well. I mean, I would love to say, "Oh, I'm just letting it flow and be what it is." No, I feel very much like in this, and who knows? I'm not big on like exactly knowing what's going on with astrology and the stars and what have you. But there's a weird energy right now because you're certainly not the only person that I've spoken to recently who's kind of in this same mind space. And like this is literally moment by moment where I'm like, I'm fine, sell everything. We have a couple properties here in St. Louis. I'm like, sell everything, like liquidate it all, let's go. And then they're like in 5 minutes, I'll be like, no, this is fine. Like everything's great. Like what? So I'm not managing it well, to be entirely honest with you. Yeah, I guess I'm just letting it be what it needs to
Yeah.
be. And I'm keeping a really frank and open and honest running dialogue with Matt. And bless his heart, my husband always he knows that like I get really stressed out when we have too many roots and I feel too settled. And so his way of always like calming me is saying like we don't have to be on anyone else's plans. We can sell it all at any point. Like we don't have to be here. And like as soon as he reassures me, I'm like, oh, like, I can feel my body relax. So I'm like, okay, but why? Why is there a resistance to this other thing? So there's some digging I need to do. I wish I had better advice for you at
No,
this
mm,
at this point. But I feel like I'm still kind of exploring that myself. So yeah, I don't know. Let's touch base in 6 months when we've figured a couple things out.
great. No, I loved that response, honestly, and it's so honest, and that's what I love about you. You're so honest, and it's when I just had a conversation with someone else, and she was like, "Oh, last time I saw you, like, you were kinda struggling with some stuff, and it looks like you're killing it now." And I was like, "Yeah, some days. Some days I still feel like I'm struggling with stuff." It's just that's
Yeah.
the
You're like,
reality.
doesn't look that way? Cool.
Right, right, exactly, but it's I think that the reality, um, sometimes for people looking in is that, "Oh, this person's just, they're doing great all of the time, and they're not struggling with anything," and there's periods where it's like, "Yeah, all in a day, we're going through the roller coaster of emotions."
Yeah, yeah. And absolutely 100%. I think we just have to have so much grace for ourselves because we're only human and we get the curse and the blessing of that like full spectrum of human emotions, and it is a fucking spectrum and it can swing wildly moment by moment. So I think just being very patient with ourselves and like grace is a word that has been popping up for me a lot lately. I keep running into that word. I'm like, girl, like have some grace, have some patience and extra love for yourself because it's all going to work out exactly as it should.
Mm, yeah, patience is a hard one for people, and uncertainty is such a hard thing, and I think if we can just sit with ourselves while also supporting ourselves, then we usually get answers. Cool shit
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know all the answers typically. Like they're always there. It's just can we be still enough? Can we be silent enough to tune in and listen? Because most of the time there's far too much chatter for us, or chatter in our heads going on for us to tune in and actually hear what's going on. But I think usually we have all the answers. It's just if we shut up and listen.
Yeah, and that's the hard part, and that was a gift that you helped give me through breath work too, because I cannot tell you the last time before I went to your first breath work class that I just was with myself for an hour.
Yeah, that's so funny that you mentioned that, 'cause I had a conversation earlier in the day with, one of my girlfriends who came to my last retreat, and she's coming to the next one in the spring, and she's like, "I realize I'm never alone." She's like, "I haven't had solo time to think and just be with my thoughts." She's like, "In maybe 13 years." And I'm like,
Mm,
"Well, sounds like you have some great catching up to do." How can you create that time and allow yourself to dive in? And I think it's just so important to meet ourselves where we're at, just without any expectations or judgment or thoughts of guilt or shame. And like I said, I think a lot of answers can be found in stillness and spaciousness, but sometimes we have to be forced to be still for an hour or 90 minutes or what that may be, and it'll be great.
it'll be great. Yeah, I think
Great.
that there's such a big thing there, at least for me and a lot of people I work with, where learning that that's safe
Mm,
and that you actually do have answers when you when that happens, and there's a lot of direction also and clarity. So,
yeah, and, the safety's a big one, like, that's why people are so afraid of, like, the darkness retreats, like, there's no danger, like, you are so safe. However, the thing that we fear is, this 7 inches between our ears, like, why? That should be the coolest, kindest, like, most loving place to exist. And
uh,
for most of us, it's not. So, okay, that's a problem. Like, okay, what can I do to I using the word fix, but what can I do to make this a cooler place to exist? Because it's the only one I get. And
mm,
if I'm just afraid of time and space with myself, like, what do you mean? But it's true. It's true. So I think that's why things like that can be so radically effective, and that's, more of a macro dose, if you will, but, finding an hour, 90 minutes here and there just to be with yourself can be wildly effective. And I think we can solve a lot of our problems, and people would probably be a lot more emotionally mature and aware if we all took more time.
yeah, I agree. So, you mentioned a couple challenges that you faced that were kind of pivotal in where you are now. What like, you named 2, and those were really, really big. A big injury, a preventative surgery. Both of those things probably came with some losses as well, and I know that you're someone that now believes, at least, in, like, facing challenge and taking it on, and it leads to growth. When people are faced with big, big, big challenges, and maybe you can use your personal examples to walk people through this. What are the step by steps?
I think big, scary life challenges will ultimately show those deeper sides of yourself, good, bad, ugly. I think that it would be very easy to ignore or run from or deny or just be angry, right? Go through all these stages of grief when faced with a big, scary thing. When I think about my BRCA diagnosis, which is the reason I got my mastectomy, increased my risk of breast cancer to about 85% over time. I was diagnosed when I was 26, and I went through all of those stages at 26. And I was so mad, and I felt like it was so unfair. And why me? How could the universe deal me this hand of cards? And And then I was in denial for a while, like wouldn't go to my appointments, like very much like
Yes.
step by step went through all of those things. And it wasn't until I had a much clearer sense of self and who I was, what I valued, what I was going to make happen out of life, where I was really more prepared to approach it. So I don't know that I have any type of like step by step guidebook in handling big challenges in your life. But I think the more rooted and grounded you are in your sense of self, in your standards, in what you value, the better you will handle those situations. And back to that word grace, I think it's very important to give ourselves grace through situations like that, simply because there is no rule book, right? Like what I just said, like there's no person like handing out little pamphlets that's like, oh, this happened to you, here's what you do. Like no, we're just humans, we're all figuring it out for the first time on our own, first time that we remember, I guess, anyway. And like it's hard, so it is important to give ourselves grace. And I think that, there might be uglier sides or darker sides that come out during those challenges. But ultimately it's going to be how you handle, like it has to be handled, right? There has to be some decision made at some point. And I think that is going to end up being a reflection of maybe not necessarily who you are at that moment, but of who you want to be. And I wanted to be someone that was going to make the big scary decisions to set her future self up for more success. And if doing this, reduces future risk and helps me live longer and healthier and takes that big scary weight off my shoulders that I've just felt looming for years, then I'm going to do it. And if I want to set a good example for my friends, the people in my life, online community, then I want to be someone who does what she says she's going to do, not just someone who talks the talk. And yeah, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. There's no step by step, like, this is what you do, step 1, step 2, step 3.
Yeah.
And everybody's experience is different. It's helpful. Like you show the process that you go through. I tend to show the process that I go through when shitty stuff is going on or whatever. Be- everybody's human.
Yeah. And it always helps to know that you're not alone.
Uh,
And you never know who you're helping by you sharing your own process, whether that is an injury, whether that is grief or some other big thing that you're navigating. Like you just never know who's going to see that, who's going to resonate with your message. And I got so many incredible messages from women who also are BRCA positive and either thinking about a mastectomy or whatever, we're somewhere along the journey, and it connected me to so many incredible women. And as soon as I shared that online and started having these conversations, even before I had the surgery, I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel lighter because this is the first time I've shared this with the public, and it's being received so beautifully, and there's so much support, and I'm also getting these messages of thank you for sharing. So it just was overwhelming emotionally, spiritually, mentally, in all the best possible ways to just feel that outpouring of love and support. So you just never know who you could be touching by sharing your own journey.
yeah. I think that's like a gift to yourself and to others. So,
Mhm. Truly.
yeah. You've said values a number of times, and this is something that I also talk about all the time. So getting strong, well, one, what are your values? What are the things that drive you? Because it sounds like you're very value driven these days.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think mine are so varied. But when it comes to personal values, I think absolutely freedom being at the top of that list, and that generally just being freedom to live my life how I want to live my life, as I'm sure most entrepreneurs can resonate with. And me valuing, travel and seeing the world. Um, so much, obviously, that goes hand in hand with freedom. I want to be able to work from wherever and kind of live life on my terms, I think. And authenticity being another one. I think that we live, in a world that is so curated, and we're getting further and further along this AI route. Like sometimes it's hard to even know what's real and what's authentic and what's not. So I think, real, authentic humans, like living these beautifully embodied lives, are people that I want to spend my time with, and that is who I strive to be. Like we talked about, like someone who walks the walk, like who does what she says she's going to do. And I think that, I don't want to say authenticity is rare, but it is just something I value in other people. Yeah, I don't want to seem like a Debbie Downer and say that it's rare, because it's not. But it is something that I value and that I recognize in others. So I think that's a really beautiful thing. So I think those two are very high on my list. What about
Mm.
yours?
I Well, integrity is one that just continues to come up for me all of the time, and I have a hard time explaining to people what that necessarily means, but I know it when I know it. I feel it when I feel it, and a huge part of that is walking the walk, like if I say that I'm gonna do hard things, then I'm gonna do hard things. If I say that I'm gonna show up as authentically as I possibly can, I'm gonna do that. No matter if it's scares the shit out of me, no matter if I'm afraid that people aren't gonna like me, like any of those stuff. So integrity tends to always come to the top of my
For
list.
sure. Hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I think that, you don't get super clear about these things until you've lived a little bit of life and you've had some experiences under your belt, and you've been in a lot of circumstances, and you've met a lot of people, and you've been in a lot of situations, and then things, I think, just become more clear as you go on, and like I said, get more rooted in who you are as a human being. And then you start noticing, and I think, we should be very selective of how we spend our time and our energy, and what we're doing and who we're around and what we consume, all of that. And I think you just get more and more aware of that, and you become more selective of what you say yes to.
Were you someone that used to say yes to all of the things?
I think maybe not quite that level, but I was absolutely a people pleaser to some extent. So I do feel more comfortable saying no and setting boundaries now. I don't know that I was saying yes to like everything. And there is also that part of me that's like, you should say yes to a lot of things, because just like life experiences, like say yes to life. But then, you can have these things at the same time. Also, we should have boundaries and not be exerting ourselves to the point of like exhaustion and burnout and all these things. So I think there's a fine line. Like, be open to what life brings you, but also at the same time understand your limits and your boundaries, and maintain healthy ones.
Yeah, good answer.
Yeah, like, let's
I
just
know, I'm
cover all those
curious.
bases.
I definitely like lots of people pleasing in my history, and it's something it's like an onion. It just layers and layers. I'm like, oh, weird. That's people pleasing coming out.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I used to so much more, and now I'm like, "Jesus Christ, I'm almost 40, like, I don't have time. I don't have time." And also, sometimes I would just rather be at home with the cats, like, and that's okay too.
That is okay too. 2 weekends ago, I went to bed at like 7 p.m. I was like, oh my god, I love this for me.
Yeah,
And people are like, oh,
yeah,
you want? Nope, nope. I'm hanging out by my
yeah,
pool with my dog, going to bed at 7.
good for you.
I loved that for me that day. Like 25-year-old Meryl would have been appalled, but
Mhm.
that's
Yeah,
okay.
but I think that's how it's supposed to be, right? Like, there's things that we should do or we're doing in our 20s that we wouldn't poke with a 10-foot pole right now, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely not. And
Yeah.
that's fine. There's a time and a place for it, and we made it out of our 20s alive, and that's all fine and good, and we're successful adults now.
Yes.
Look at us.
Look at us. I know. Well, it's all part of experience, right? I think it's easy to look back and cringe and be like, "Oh my fucking god, what was I doing?" But also at the same time, if we're not looking back and cringing, then What did we learn? What did we learn? How did we evolve? So,
Mhm. That's so true.
yeah. So when you are deciding when to say yes, I'm curious how you kind of go through this. When you're deciding how to say yes to something where maybe you really do want to do it, but your capacity is kind of tapped out. How do you go through that process?
Mhm. First of all, if we want to talk about human design a little bit, I don't know if any of your followers are into that, or if, are you into that?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you a generator?
I don't know.
Okay, so 70% of the population are actually generators. So, what that means is we are sacral dominant. So, that second energy center up. So, most of us make decisions effectively with our gut. So, we should typically check in with our gut before we check in with our brain. So, if there is a decision that needs to be made, that's where I go first, right? I go to the gut first. If it feels like a yes there, and I'm getting a second yes from the brain, cool. We're all in. But it's important, I think, for us all to remember like your brain will lie to you, but your body won't. So if we have a really good relationship with our body and we can, like we said, tune down that chatter enough to quiet it and tune in and listen, we'll find the answer. And your gut's a very important place to go looking for those. Checking with the body. If it feels like yes, there, great, full steam ahead. It seems a little chaotic schedule wise, then I'm looking to take stuff off the counter. And there's nothing more. There's nothing I love more than taking stuff off the calendar. So I think that recognizing priorities is really important. Recognizing things that can be delegated, things that can happen later, all that stuff. If it's something really, really super important, I will make space for it. But I think that most people might not even understand how to check in with their bodies or might not be in a safe enough space nervous system wise to get a clear answer from their bodies. So I think that that's work that should always be addressed first. Like if we don't feel safe and confident in this, it's very hard to feel safe and confident in the world at large. So I think really kind of doing everything you can to fine tune that relationship with yourself, and like we talked about, this space between your ears, and making that a very safe, comfortable, loving place to live is just simply going to ripple out into all the decisions that you make, and you will feel more clear about like what is a defined yes and no to you.
Yeah. That that is kind of how I have evolved in decision making as well, and figuring out my body and how I feel in my body, that was such a game changer. So checking in, I learned it differently. I'll have to look into this a little bit more. I've heard about it, I've looked into it briefly, but I'm like, "Okay, so human design, I have to look into a little bit more."
There's an app called Neutrino Design. They offer a very clear and direct, kind of easy to understand human design chart. And all you need is like your birth chart information, and you plug that in. And it's very interesting. I'm sure there are also many, many, many human design apps. There's probably like the human design app, whatever. But it is true that most people are some type of generator, and forgive me for what I do and do not know because I'm not an expert on human design. But I know enough to say that most people are generators, and most people make gut based decisions. So that is where we should be looking when we kind of tune inwards when we're making these big decisions. But like you said, it is a game changer when we understand how to get there, and our bodies in a spot where we can actually listen to it. Because like we said, most people are running around so dysregulated that one, they don't even know because it's their normal, they've adapted
Right.
to it, and two, they have no idea how to shift out of it successfully. And the goal is not to become like calm and zen and peaceful all the time. I mean, if that is your goal, fine, great. But I think ultimately our goal should be resilience, and not eliminating the waves, but getting better at simply riding them.
Yeah. I love that way of viewing resilience. I think resilience is something that's popped up for me a lot in this year, and I think a lot of people look at it, I don't wanna say incorrectly, but in a different through a different lens. And what I've really liked is resilience is being able to stay kind of steady, like you said, riding the waves. They're gonna come, all this stuff's gonna come at you, and just being able to be aligned through it all.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's going to be nearly impossible to remove all the stressors from your life. And
Yeah.
being or experiencing stress is part of being human. And we're also hardwired to go looking for the stress as just simply a threat deterrent or detector. Biologic from a biological standpoint, to stay alive, like we're meant to go looking for it to stay safe. So it can be really really hard to eliminate that, if not impossible. And I think resiliency is also where that has popped up for me a lot too. Like, my words right now are rooted, regulated, and resilient, and they're all like, I'm like, man, all of those are so good and like juicy, and together they just like, I don't know, it's like creates kind of like this ultimate human type vibe. Like, that's who I'm aspiring to be, is rooted, regulated, resilient. And yeah, we're never gonna eliminate those waves. So let's just get fucking good at riding them. And I told someone the other day, I was like, the biggest indicator, I think, of a person's nervous system is how they drive.
Oh,
So pay attention, because you'll see the folks that are struggling.
yeah. Oh, I just had this thought pop into my mind where I used to be way more ragey. Now I'm just like, "Yeah,
Yeah. If you're in a rush, that's fine. Yeah.
fine." I
You'll notice it now.
Yeah, now I'm going to. I what something that helps me in driving is just assuming that everybody has, like, a big birthday cake in their car that they're trying to safely deliver. So,
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
okay, so what type of because you're, like, the somatic queen, so what type of simple down regulation practices can people do?
Yeah, so the number one, well, I'll give us two. I don't want to bombard people with things. But the number one just easy breathwork technique that I like to share is inhaling through your nose into your stomach, into your diaphragm, thinking about like a 360 breath. So not only expanding forward into the stomach, but also expanding into the obliques and the low back, just the way like you would fill up if you were going to take a squat, right? So breathing in through the nose, filling up that kind of inner tube of air around us, breathing in for 4 counts, holding your breath for 7, and then exhaling for 8. And one of the secrets for down regulation is always extending that exhale longer than your inhale. So that's a really, really simple method, 4, 7, 8. It's a very, very easy tool to keep in your belt when you feel like you are road raging and need to pull over and take a couple breaths or whatever that may be. And it's not like you do this once and you feel better. Like, no, do this on repeat for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes. I realized that I shared something about that breath and I didn't mention repeat it. And I got a DM from someone that's like, I did that and it didn't work. They're like, I did it once and it didn't work. I'm like, once as in you tried it for a couple minutes one day, or like just one time? And they're like, just one time it didn't work. I was like, okay, well, that's my fault for not explaining more thoroughly. But repeat until you feel better. But really the secret there is extending that exhale. Um, the other easy trick for down regulation is breathing in through the left nostril. So taking time to close the right. So our left is linked to our parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest, and our right is linked to our sympathetic. So when we want to upregulate. So taking some time to intentionally breathe just through the left nostril. Same thing, extending the exhale. You can even do the 4, 7, 8 through a single nostril if you kind of want to double its potency. But that left one is going to help you down regulate. And that's a very easy, simple tool, like we said, to have in your tool belt.
Love it. Super, super simple, and the
Super
cool
simple.
thing yeah, everybody, guess what? It's free. You have breath with you all the time. Very
Hmm.
accessible.
And
So
if we are focusing on counting our breaths or counting that exhale to ensure it's nice and long, we can't really think about much else. So it is kind of forcing you to be present, and, you're probably not going to be looking at your phone. Also, if you have one hand, like closing your nostril, like it's going to kind of minimize other distractions, which is going to also be helpful in the moment.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I love that. I've actually haven't done, the nostril plug, so I'm gonna try that.
Yes, yes, try it and report back.
I will. I will. Alright, Bonnie, I'm gonna end with asking you some weird questions.
Ooh, okay.
Alright, so when you get back from a trip, what's the first thing you do?
Unpack.
I had a feeling that you were an instant unpacker.
Of course. If you're thinking I can leave a suitcase there untouched or half unpacked, you're out of your sweet little mind, Meryl. That's not how things work in my house. Um, just kidding. Matt might do that, and I don't let it bother me, which is great. Like I'm not that level of OCD. Like I have to take care of my own stuff, but it doesn't bother me if his sits for a while. But yeah, I'm an instant unpacker.
Okay, that was my dogs are barking again. So,
That's
that
okay.
was
My cats have been meowing.
they're talking to each
Yeah,
other.
yeah. You
Uh,
knew. You already knew what my answer was gonna be.
yeah, I had a feeling. I had a feeling. Okay, what's one of the weirdest interactions that you've had with, like, online or with I'd imagine that having a big online presence, there's a lot of people that probably feel like they know you, but you have no idea who they are. What's one of the weirdest interactions you've had?
Um, there's a guy who has a tattoo of me
Oh,
on
wow.
his tricep or tricep, I think. Yeah. Um, nice guy. Met him a couple times at some fitness like expos, and he took a picture of me that I shared on social media and kind of like whited out the eyes. And it was when I was blonde, and it's kind of like big hair, like lots of curls, and kind of made it like evil looking, and it's pretty cool. I'll find it somewhere. I can share it. But yeah, there's a nice young man that has a tattoo of me.
That is interesting and not something a lot
Yeah.
of people can say. So,
Yeah, I mean, super nice guy. He's always very polite and friendly, and we have a couple pictures together, and yeah, it's unique.
okay. With skincare, what is overrated and what is underrated?
My gosh, that's a really good question. What's overrated? And I'm not like a skincare expert. I'm a skincare enthusiast, so I might not have the best answers.
The
Um,
Your opinion.
well, I'll tell you what's the most effective thing that I've ever come across is tallow. And that's what I've been like hyping online right now. Like it has changed my skin entirely. And there's so many wonderful brands out there now. I've tried a few. But find like a balm, sleep in it, like game changer, like absolute game changer. My skin has never looked better. I can send you some brands if you want to link some things for people.
Sure.
Um, but tallow, and you can get tallow lip balm. I mean, yeah, I've been like obsessively using it for like the past 9 months, and it's incredible. Let's see. I think, I'm probably going to have to go with red light therapy as like
Overrated.
overrated for
Yeah.
face, and maybe that's just like really infrequent red light therapy like I do. Like I think you have to be using it like a ton for it to really be effective, like part of your morning and night routine, which I'm not that dialed. So sorry if there's any like huge red light fans out there, but I don't think that's like the game-changing thing for me, you know? Do you use it?
No, I
Okay.
don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um and then I think the most underrated thing would probably be microneedling,
Okay.
because I feel like we've known about microneedling for a long time, but we've also introduced all these other types of facials and other treatments, but like that one is still really, really, really effective. And I noticed incredible results when I did that frequently too.
Oh, okay.
That's it. That's it. And I mean, outside of that, the only medical spa treatments that I've done have just been Botox, here, and then, a little bit of lip filler, but I haven't done that in so long. So, like I said, I'm not expert, but enthusiast when it comes to
I
some.
I know you are, and that's why I asked. I get
Yeah,
weird questions,
yeah.
so
But, like, tallow is a hill I will die on.
okay,
So,
I was actually wondering if that was gonna be overrated because I haven't
no.
done it, but now I'm gonna try, so why not?
Yeah, I will send you a couple brands to link for people, obsessed, obsessed.
Okay, alright. If you could choose, what would your last meal be?
Oh, that's so sad. Um, Here's the thing, I'm not a crazy food person, but one of the best meals I've ever had in my life was at our one of our friends' restaurants in Paris, and it was, like, this most incredible dining experience, had, like, just everything, like, the wine was paired perfectly with everything, the steak was incredible, so, I mean, I think steak has to be on that list, and then also, like, give me steak and then give me, like, 6 dessert options.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I'm a dessert girly through and through, and, like, everything at this meal was, like, iconic, and it was just this incredible experience, um, but I'm a sweets girl, for sure, like, you could just, like, plop me down in a bakery for my last meal, and I'd probably just be very happy there.
But yeah, that sounds fabulous, actually.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I love it. Alright, last question, not weird, but the last question. What does doing cool shit mean to you?
Ooh, doing cool shit means that you are doing cool shit for you and no one else, because what you're doing might not seem cool to other people. So I think it's really, really, really important that whatever the cool thing is, that you're doing it for you, not anyone else, and that it's aligned with the version of you that you wanna be. Not any version that you've been, but the version that you are now, the version that you're stepping into. It means living life on your terms and unapologetically, and knowing what you value and what you want out of life. That's a very lengthy answer.
No, I loved it. It was absolutely perfect. So,
'Cause I think we get so caught up in, like, what is going to look cool or what someone else thinks is cool or whatever. Who gives a shit? Like, it just needs to be cool to you. At the end of the day, that's all that matters when you're 80, 90, whatever, on your deathbed. Like, it's not gonna matter what someone else thought of it. Like, all that will matter is whether or not you think you lived a cool life.
yeah, spot on. It's like that's actually pretty much how I had a conversation with someone and they were like, "Well, what do you want?" And I was like, "I just want to, at any point in my life moving forward, want to be like, wow, I've done a lot of cool shit and I'm like very satisfied with my life." That's
Yeah, yeah, I'm trying to, like, make 8-year-old me stoked and 80-year-old me stoked. Looking forward and looking back, like, I just want all versions of me to be pumped.
yeah. Yeah.
That's it. That's it. It sounds so simple, and yet we're just, trying to figure out what we wanna do, where we wanna live, if we wanna burn it all down or not, and maybe that ends up being the cool thing. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. TBD.
TBD, fam.
TBD. All right, Bonnie, thank you so much for joining. I had so much fun with you and tell people how to like get in touch with you. You're doing a lot of cool shit and plug yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on Instagram at Bonschro, Bonschro. You can find me there for coaching. You can find me there for breath work. You can find me there for our community, which is the Not Dead Yet coaching community. We are a mindset lifestyle coaching community. We do retreats, we do group travel, we do a ton of exciting things. And yeah, that's the best way to stay in touch and stay in the know.
Zing. All right. Yeah. Reach out to Bonnie, shoot her a message, shoot me a message if anything resonated with you here. If you want to extend the conversation, we'd love to chat. And we will catch you next time.
Bye. Thank you.